Hey guys, welcome to Whiskey and Literature. I'm your host, Captain Mike, and I'm excited about this video tonight because Mrs. Captain is out of town. So it's just me and the whiskey keeping each other company as good friends should. Tonight's video is a bottled in bond bourbon blind. 4 states worth of bourbon. So I was going to make this video simply about the Old Grandad Bonded on recommendation of one of my viewers who watched my 114 review. But it quickly turned into 7 bottles worth of whiskey, and I think it's just too unwieldy and too much for me. So I wanted to keep it 4 state bottled in bond bourbon blind. So I had to cut out 3 Kentucky whiskeys. So let's talk about the ones that we cut out, and then let's talk about what we're gonna do and how we set the blind up. First of all, the Old Grandad, which is the whole purpose of this video, got cut. I've had a little sip of that, and it's pretty good whiskey. I do like the 114, and the bonded is just as good. And it could have been in this blind easily, but there's one Kentucky whiskey that I really wanted to be in this video tonight. Evan Williams, bonded. If you're going to drink Evan Williams, you should drink the bonded. It's $17.99. It's a pretty good whiskey for that price. What a value. And it deserves to be on this list, but it got the axe tonight. And the other Kentucky whiskey that I cut was the Colonel E.H. Taylor small batch bottled in bond. Excellent whiskey, certainly could have been in this blind tonight, but the remaining Kentucky whiskey that I really wanted to be in this video was the McKenna Henry single barrel 10-year bottled in bond. So this is the one that's remaining, and that's great. But we have a California whiskey in the mix, a Tennessee bottled in bond. We have a Missouri whiskey, and we have the McKenna Henry 10-year single barrel bottled in bond from Kentucky. It's a Heaven Hill product. Let's talk about the blind today. What is a bottled in bond? Why do I like bottled in bond? And then let's get at it. So first of all, as far as the video and the blind goes, I just set this up as best I could by myself. And I guess I could have done 7 whiskeys, but it just gets unwieldy and too much. And I'll say at this point right now, 7 whiskeys by myself in a blind, that's too much for me to handle. So I thought 4 was a pretty good number. So what I've done, I've got different letters on the back of each bottle. On the bottom of each glass, I've got it double taped with blue painter's tape with the corresponding letter. And they've been in here for probably 45 minutes getting the spin action here. I didn't pour them in any order. I just placed them on here randomly, and it's just been getting the spin. So it is what it is, and we'll do the blind as best we can and let you know what I think. So I'm gonna pick 2 out. I'll eliminate one of them, and then I'll do the other 2, eliminate one of them, and then the 2 winners, and tell you which one tonight suits my palate the best. But first of all, and I was at work today and telling a co-worker that I had some bottled in bond whiskeys, and he was like, well, what does bottled in bond mean? So just very briefly, bottled in bond was instituted, I believe, in the past when sketchy things were going on with whiskey. So the government stepped in and said, if you want your whiskey to be certified, then it can be bottled in bond. And so if it is bottled in bond, you know it's a single distillation season at a single distillery. So you can't have a mix of different aged whiskeys or from different distilleries. It's a single distillery from a single season. You know it's going to be aged for at least 4 years. So at least a 4-year-old whiskey, and in a US government bonded warehouse. And also it is going to be bottled at 50 ABV or 100 proof. So those are the requirements to be a bottled in bond whiskey. But what does that mean to you or me as the end consumer? When we go to the store and we see a bottled in bond whiskey at the store, like what really does that mean to you? Well, to me it means it's 100 proof. That's great. Do I really care about the warehouse and that sort of stuff? I don't know enough about it to care, but 100 proof and at least 4 years old. Those are the 2 facts that I need to know that to me make a difference when I'm purchasing the whiskey. And I do feel like bottle and bond whiskeys are special somehow. They do just, almost every bottle and bond whiskey that I've had, I feel like it's been pretty good. And it's like when Mrs. Captain tells me to go buy her a Cabernet at the store and she doesn't tell me which specific one to go. Basically, my method is I go to the store and they usually, the better wines, they have a score on them. And if it's 90 or 92 or higher, I know that's a pretty safe bet, and I pick those wines out not knowing anything really about it. So if you're at the store and you want to pick a new whiskey and you don't really know what to get, then go for a bottled and bond. And it's, I think, a pretty safe bet. But to me, 100 proof and 4 years old, and I think that's pretty great. Let's talk about the first one of our whiskeys tonight, and this is Tennessee in the house, Jack Daniel's Bonded. This whiskey is, you know, it's interesting, the three that I cut, I just realized those were the three lowest priced whiskeys, talking about MSRP, out of these 7. And that wasn't intentional, it just happened that the McKenna Henry was the most expensive of the Kentucky whiskeys at MSRP. We all know that the E.H. Taylor is kind of hard to find at MSRP, though it is possible. Anyway, Jack Daniel's Bonded, $53.99 for this bottle. It is non-age stated, so we know it's at least 4 years old because it's bottled and bond. Mash bill is 80% corn, 8% rye, and 12% malted barley. So that is a very little bit of rye and a huge amount of corn in the Jack Daniel's product. So this is my second bottle of the Jack Daniel's, and I think it's pretty good. All right, let's just pick 2 of these here, and we'll go for it. Not really sure how this is going to go. The only blinds that I've done on the channel so far, or even in real life, really have been just kind of a head-to-head. So that's kind of a blind. I mean, it's a blind. Those are set up by Mrs. Captain or our daughter Sadie. I helped her, and so I didn't know which was which, but it was just a, and I was trying to guess which whiskey was, and I got it wrong too. So it was kind of embarrassing, especially since it was High West. I thought for sure I'd be able to pick the High West out, but in my defense, High West bourbon versus Bullet bourbon, I mean, I literally could not tell the difference. But anyway, let's see what we got in here. Oh. Okay, and I'm trying not to guess which whiskey, that's not the point of this, just to eliminate which one do I think smells and tastes better and then move on. So I'm not trying to guess which one is it, but a big banana note on the nose, a little bit of nuttiness, kind of reminds me a little bit of a peanut butter banana sandwich. Not too much alcohol on the nose, it's very sweet. Anyway, this is my first whiskey of the day today. Cheers. A huge amount of sweetness, more banana on the nose or on the palate. It's a little run over by the sweetness, but it's good. I like this, perhaps a little sweeter than I typically would be my preference, but I like it. It's a very nice whiskey. There was some caramel with that banana on that one. Good, that's good. Let's see, a little bit of water. Do you drink water? Do you do blinds at your house? I joined a couple whiskey societies on Facebook in my area here, and I see guys sometimes, they'll post that they did a blind of 4 or 5 whiskeys in a night, and they'll post their preferences. I haven't done that on the Facebook page, and I do oftentimes drink multiple whiskeys in one night, but typically not blinded. I'm just still so new to everything. It's just, I don't typically not know what I'm drinking, unless I get a little too much and then I mix the glasses up. Well, that happens sometimes. Okay, on to the second one. Oh, and I didn't mention that Of these 4 whiskeys, this is my second bottle of the Bonded. This is how much I've had of the Ben Holladay. This is how much I've had of the McKenna Henry. And this is how much I've had of the Redwood Empire Grizzly Beast. I took a small sip of these yesterday, and that's the first time I've tried any one of these whiskeys. So I don't really recognize this profile. I think it's just a kind of a dull, it's not very sweet, maybe just a hint of rye spice on there. It's a little bit drier, and again, not sweet. Some of those bourbon notes, but it's almost a dull nose. It's not very bright or airy, just a little bit of alcohol on it. Cheers. A bit of rye spice on there. Again, just a hint of some sweetness, but it's just kind of overrun a bit by that spice. But, okay, so these 2 here, do I have a preference? Typically, I'm a spice guy, but I also really like the banana note. It's one of my favorite notes in whiskey. I love it on the Woodford Reserve Double Oak and some other of my favorite whiskeys. And so while typically I'm gonna be the rye guy, tonight I'm gonna go with the banana over the rye, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's first round done. I've talked about the Bonded, and so we're gonna go by price point on the whiskey. So this was the cheapest of these 4 bottles at $53.99. Look at my notes here. The next cheapest was the Ben Holladay Bottled in Bond. So this one is 6 years old, from Missouri, mash bill unknown, and interestingly enough, this is a Missouri whiskey that I bought in Kentucky on the Bourbon Trail. I was at Justin's House of Bourbon, and they had the Ben Holladay reps were there, and they had 3 or 4 of their expressions. And like I said earlier, when I am faced with a brand or a whiskey that I'm not familiar with, I almost always am going to default to the Bottled in Bond if it's available. And they had a Bottled in Bond for $59.99, and so I picked it up. Just opened it for the first time last night. And if that kind of thing interests you, this is the only screw top of, I believe, all 7 of those whiskeys. The Evan Williams also, of course, is a screw top. But this one of this group here is the only screw top, is the Ben Holladay, if that matters to you. So, Ben Holladay, Missouri whiskey. All right. So now we're going to these 2 here. All right. Do you default to Kentucky whiskeys? Do you avoid Texas whiskeys? Do you not like MGP? Do you drink kind of all whiskeys? I'm still at the point in my drinking journey, if you will, where I don't discriminate between Missouri, Indiana, or California, Vermont, Michigan. I might discriminate against Canadian whiskey, but other than that, I drink Irish whiskey and Scotch, Japanese. I have an Indian whiskey as well here. So, wow, that's so different. That's different than these first 2 that I've had here. It's deeper and darker and richer, very classic bourbon notes, not a lot of alcohol, just deep caramel, deep sweetness, really deep brown sugar. What's deeper than brown sugar? I don't know. It's deep brown sugar. It just feels like or smells like it's layers upon layers of sweetness and yumminess and perhaps some age. It's very nice. It's not too sweet on the nose. It's a very nice, I feel like, I'll say this has been the most complex of the 2 that I've drank so far, or that I've smelled so far. I haven't drank it yet. Wow. I like it. I like it a lot. Cheers. more of that sweetness, but it's very balanced. It has a nice mouthfeel, just the right amount of viscosity, just a little bit of lingering heat on the top of my mouth. It's very classic bourbon notes, some caramel, some vanillas. There's some oaks in there. Again, those deep sweetness, those brown sugars. That's a very nice whiskey, and I do like that for sure. Let's take another little sippy sip. Okay, let's just put these back here for a second. Let's see, price-wise, next we're going to the McKenna Henry. This is the 10-year single barrel Kentucky straight bourbon, Heaven Hill product. I paid $69.99 for this bottle. It's a single barrel, 10 years old, 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley. That to me is about the bottom of where I like my rye to be. Though I do think that's a pretty good, in a bourbon, it's a nice starting point for rye. You have all that sweetness from the bourbons and those classic notes, and then you have a little twist with some rye in there, and that's a pretty good note. I've heard some great things about the McKenna Henry single barrels, and I've also read a couple really poor reviews online. And it's the luck of the draw, I guess, with a single barrel. I think of the Jack Daniel's single barrel proofs and a single barrel selects. I feel like they are pretty consistent, and some single barrel programs are that way. They're fairly consistent, and maybe the McKenna Henry is still working it out. I mean, this is the only bottle that I've ever had of this, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But if it's any one of these three I've had so far, they've all been really good. So this I bought really from some reviews and a little bit of hype online. Is that being a tater, or is that a whiskey tater kind of thing to do, to buy a whiskey from online reviews? I mean, I think that's why we watch reviews, and if we have guys that we trust, or we listen to what their preferences are, and maybe they've had some whiskeys in the past that we, on their recommendation, have tried and liked, then we just keep going with that. I think that's a legitimate thing to do. And whether that's being a whiskey tater or not, I mean, I've certainly tatered up several times this year. Okay, so let's see, fourth whiskey here. So also nice bourbon notes, but I feel like there's more rye in this one. With those, I feel like there's just a hint of banana on there underlying that rye spice. Anyway, cheers. Okay, that was definitely the highest rye of the bunch. Nice bourbon notes with a nice amount of rye spice, some cinnamon, just enough heat. No real alcohol. Mouthfeel is okay. I'll just give it an okay. Okay to good. Not excellent. Certainly not as viscous as number 3 there, as its competition there. Yeah, typically I would give it to the spice. I said that earlier as well. I wouldn't normally give it to the spice, and that was a nice amount. But the depth and complexity of this one, and I'm kind of splitting hairs here, but I'm going to go, the rye forward ones both lost out here tonight. I feel like maybe I was kind of off my rye preference tonight. So let's head to head these two here. This one's a little more banana on the nose, a little more just depth and complexity and sweetness. Let's go in again. Cheers. I like drinking 4 or 5 whiskeys in a night. I'll often just do little pours in a Glencairn. I don't drink out of the rocks glasses very often. I feel like I do prefer rocks glasses to Glencairn for the drinking experience, but I'm still in that nosing, tasting phase of my whiskey, and so I do drink a lot of Glencairns. Wow, what a nice nose. So rich, caramelly, sweetness. I feel like this complex, deep, can I say it's deep? Just a bit of heat and spice, but not much. Just depth and age and oak and bourbon. I think that's a pretty good whiskey. And I think this one's gonna have a hard time surpassing that. Let's go again. Nice banana, peanut butter banana. A little peanut butter banana sandwich action there going on. Okay. That's a nice whiskey, but I think that it's just thin and young and not as complex and deep and rich as this one. This is just going to be clearly the winner. I would actually even put this one above this one, because I think this was a closer comparison than these two. So I'm going to go winner, second, third, fourth. And that's my order of preference tonight. And I find that depending on what I've eaten for the day, how I feel, how late it is, how tired I am, all these factors, have I had any chocolate? Have I had anything else to drink? I think all this factors into, like, I find that some of my favorite whiskeys, it comes and it goes. And some of that's also, I think, just due to, as I drink more, I think my palate's changing and I'm able to experience more of each pour of whiskey. And so as I see deeper into the whiskey, maybe some of my favorites from last year are now maybe not my favorites. And that's kind of sad for me to say. Well, let's see what we've got here. So this is the least favorite for tonight. F as in Foxtrot. So Ben Holladay, Missouri, 4th place. And I'll say it, I think these were all excellent whiskeys and you can't go wrong with any of them. It's just my order of preference tonight. Number 4, Ben Holladay, Bottled in Bond. Number 3, B as in boy. Jack Daniel's Bonded. Yep, banana note, peanut butter banana sandwich. Jack Daniel's Bonded. Okay, so I said spice, so I'm betting this one is the Redwood Empire. D, it is. So in second place, Redwood Empire, and these two were pretty closely matched. It's just like, what do you prefer tonight? Do you want more spice or do you want more depth and complexity? Tonight it was the I'm looking at the bottle there. Tonight it's the McKenna Henry, that depth, the complexity, the richness, the viscosity, the little bit of heat. That to me is a clear winner tonight and almost a no-brainer. But I think on a night, if you want some Bottled in Bond bourbon, you want to try something new, any one of these 4, and even those 7, I think you could pick any one of those up. If you haven't tried a Bottled in Bond, just get that Evan Williams, $17. You can find it on the shelf anywhere. The Grizzly Beast is only available certain times of the year. The Ben Holladay I've been seeing shelf stable at Total Wine & More. The Bonded's very available. The McKenna Henry, I've seen it off and on here and there. I don't know, maybe not super available. The old Grandad Bonded, very available, about $29. So Evan Williams, Grandad, Jack Daniel's, perhaps Ben Holladay, all pretty easy to find. Maybe a little more difficulty finding. And this is batch 2 of the Grizzly Beast. I believe batch 3 is out now. But any one of these whiskeys, my guys, I think you would be happy to have a pour of it tonight. So, all right, having said that, if you enjoyed the video, like it, it's free. Subscribe to see more of my content. I do both whiskey and book reviews. I'm reading 52 books in 52 weeks in 2023, and all those reviews are in my channel in a playlist as I finish those reviews. I believe I have 9, maybe 10 books left to go through to the end of the year. But all right, my guys, you know what to do. I hope you're reading something good and drinking something great. Turn the pages, my friends, and stay thirsty. Cheers. That's so good.